how are you? Shall we study Bible together? Before we study, we'd like to pray. Father in heaven, please teach us your word today and speak to us. Lord, thank you for this opportunity that we have. Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right. Now, as you may know, that we have been the continued study of the book of Exodus. And last week, we learned about the birth of Moses, that when he was born, he was supposed to be killed. Basically, he was supposed to, thrown into the Nile River to be killed. However, the Pharaoh's daughter, Hatshepsut, she saved him, and eventually Moses grew up in the palace in the Egyptian palace, and he was considered to be a son of the Hatshepsut, the Pharaoh's daughter. And that's what we learned last week. Now, today, we're going to learn from the Exodus chapter 2, verse 11 to 25. The title of today's message is 40 Years of Preparation. Now, what this is all about is that Moses' life he died at 120 years old, and if you really divided his life, you can divide his life in 40 years, which means the first 40 years and the second 40 years, and then the last 40 years. Now, first 40 years, he spent his time mostly with Pharaoh's daughter. We're going to learn from chapter 2, verse 11. And the beginning of the chapter 11 is already indicate that many days has passed. How many days passed? Well, from the chapter 2, verse 11, it's 40 years has passed since he was baby. That's a long time. So I have to explain a little bit before we're going to read the Bible. I gotta explain a little bit of a background of what happened that during the 40 years until Moses became 40. What happened? Let me explain. The first I had to explain. Let me show you that little chart here. That here is Tutmosis first, who ordered Moses or all the Israeli baby to be killed, drowned in the Nile River, but Moses survived. And then Tutmosis first had the daughter. Her name is Hatshepsut, and Moses became her adopted son. Now, Hatshepsut, when she was around 20 years old, the Tutmosis first, her father died, and she married to Tutmosis second. Now, Tutmosis second, he was actually the Hatshepsut brother from the different mother. She married two brother. Now back then in Egyptian, the imperial family, they intermarried a lot, and in this case, Hatshepsut married to his her younger brother, but then the Tutmosis second, he didn't live that long. He died only like 8 years later. So when Hatshepsut was around like 29 years old, Moses around 20 years old at that time, Hatshepsut become widow, and at that time they made the boy king, the baby king, is Tutmosis third. Now, who is Tutmosis third? Tutmosis third is a baby from the Tutmosis second's baby, but it's not from Hatshepsut. And between Hatshepsut and Tutmosis second, they only had one daughter. So Hatshepsut is official wife and now queen. But however, the next king came from another woman baby from her husband, and then he was only 2 years old the time his father died. So Hatshepsut was 29, and then she was really the only daughter of the previous former king, Tutmosis first, and then she was official wife of last king, the Tutmosis second. So she really took the power So that from the year around 1503 or 1504 BC, Hatshepsut and Thutmose III, they became co-heir. They actually, two of them actually, managed the Egypt. But then mostly 2 years old baby cannot really do much. So Hatshepsut really took over the entire Egyptian the kingship, and she was there for about another 20 years. And then let me show you her picture. This is statue of Hatshepsut. She looks pretty good looking person, I would say, and also at the same time she is very capable woman. Now as far as we know that the 5 or 6,000 years of long history of Egypt, there's only like maybe 5 or 6 queen, and then she is definitely one of the number one. She could be a number one queen in Egypt. This 18th dynasty, during the time of the Hatshepsut, this entire Egypt became very wealthy. What she did was she really did a lot export import, and she made Egypt very successful. She also built many buildings. Here's some of the buildings still remained to this day. Here's the picture of the Hatshepsut temple, and that's located at the almost entrance to the Valley of King, and it's still there. And also here is another picture of the obelisk. This is tall tower that she built, and this is a tallest ancient Egypt tower still freestanding. And so as we see, the Hatshepsut was a very successful, very capable queen. But at the same time, apparently she tried to be like a man. This is another statue of Hatshepsut, and then you see here the Hatshepsut seems having a fake beard. She put the beard there, and here's another Sphinx of the Hatshepsut, and here's also the beard there. So probably during her 20 years of reign, co-reign together with Thutmose III, she was really tried to act like a man or act like a king of Egypt. Now, during that time, during the 20 years, Moses was supposed to be her son, but he was only like 8 or 9 years younger than Hatshepsut. So there's a possibility that Moses was almost like a young boyfriend of Hatshepsut, I would say. But in either way, probably Moses gave the lots of advice to Hatshepsut for sure. So that that was happening here. And then the 40 years, when Moses became 40 years age, the Hatshepsut died around age 50 years old, and the Thutmose III, the baby who was 2 years old, now became 22 years old, and now he really became next pharaoh of Egypt. And so this is about time around Moses, about 40 years age. Apparently, the power shifted from the queen Hatshepsut to the young pharaoh, the Thutmose III, and he's now 22 years old. So he probably, tried to negate the Hatshepsut's power, and then that was the time that Moses was just about, kind of losing the power as well. And then let's read from the Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. Let me read that. In those days, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and observed their hard labor. And he saw an Egyptian man attacking a Hebrew man, one of his own people. He looked this way and that and saw that no one was there, and then he attacked the Egyptian and concealed the body in the sand. Now what's happening here is apparently the time Hatshepsut losing power, she may possibly be killed. We don't know for sure, but she's about losing power. And Moses at that time went to his people, the Hebrew. Now, why Moses went there? There's a high possibility that Moses tried to be a leader of the Hebrew, because Hebrew is a big class of the people. It's almost 2 million people. And Moses really acted probably like Hatshepsut, like a younger boyfriend, I would say. So there's a possibility that if the Moses became a leader of Hebrew, he could act like a new king, or at least a king in Upper Egypt, possible. Either way, this is a very politically dangerous move. But Moses went to his Hebrew brothers' place, and then, however, what he saw was the Egyptian man is trying to give the hardship to the Israeli. Well, the Tutmosis III, we know that apparently he hated Hatshepsut, because Tutmosis III erasing all the Hatshepsut's name after she died. For many years in the Egyptian study of the Egypt, many scholars didn't know the name of Hatshepsut for many years, because the Tutmosis III, he tried to erase her name, and then he put his name, and tried to kind of regain all the achievement that Hatshepsut did, such as his own achievement. Of course, he was a co-heir, yes, but the Hatshepsut, Tutmosis III, really disliked Hatshepsut, and together probably he hated Moses. And at the same time, probably he thought that Moses is a very dangerous person. He could be act like a leader of the Hebrew, and he could possibly overthrow Tutmosis III, and there's a lot follower of the Hatshepsut still in Egyptian court. So he probably really considered Moses as a very dangerous person. Now Moses went to Hebrew, and then the Tutmosis III gave the very hardship. So he eventually killed Egyptian here. Now here, as he's killed, he looked there, here, left and right. But apparently Moses didn't look up. Now, but even though Moses didn't really ask for God for help, Moses tried to handle everything in his own hand, or with his own strength. That God knows what he did. Sometimes we look around and we thought, is nobody watching? That sometimes we try to do something okay or bad, but God knows what you're doing. Some guys watching this video, you might have something, you're doing something with your computer or something. God knows what you're doing. And I think the key word is, do we have integrity? Is that God can trust you? But in case of Moses, he looked around and he didn't look up to God, but he actually killed Egyptian. He became martyr, and he hid the Egyptian's corpse into the inside the sand, and that's what seems happens. Now, what happened after this? Let me read in verse 13. When he went out the next day, there were 2 Hebrew men fighting. So he said to the one who was in Rome, "Why are you attacking your fellow Hebrew?" The man replied, "Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? Are you planning to kill me like you killed that Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid, thinking, "Surely what I did became known." Apparently here, the Moses tried to became like a leader or king kind of the Hebrew people. Apparently, then he went to the Hebrew and tried to kind of talking them into, but apparently the Hebrew people reject Moses. And when Moses saw the 2 Hebrew fighting, Moses actually said, "Why you guys are fighting? We are all Hebrew. But then they say, who made you to our ruler or king? We didn't. And then basically they reject Moses. Here, the God sent Moses to Hebrew, and Hebrew people, they reject Moses. If they accept Moses as a leader, there's a possibility the Exodus could have done 40 years earlier, possible. Or Moses became the possible king or ruler of the Egypt. We don't know for sure how well, but history goes is that when the Moses went to the Hebrew, they reject him. And not only that, they really seems like they're going to report what Moses did to the Pharaoh, to Tutmosis III. So Moses realized this is dangerous because he will be killed by Tutmosis III. And let's see what happened after this. Verse 15. When Pharaoh heard about these events, he thought to kill Moses. So Moses fled from Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian, and he settled by a certain well. Now, apparently, Moses escaped from Egypt, and let me show you the little map here. Here's Egypt, and Moses escaped all the way to Midian here. Now, that is about 500 kilometers. That's a very, very long, almost 300 miles. And that's a distance is here in Japan is between Tokyo and Osaka. Moses escaped all the way to Midian, 300 miles away. And apparently he sat next to he rested next to the well. And probably the Moses, oh man, probably I hope that Egyptian not gonna chase him anymore. And he thought, oh, what should I do from here? But now he's in the land of Midian. Now, then what happened after this? Verse 16. Now a priest of Midian has 7 daughters, and they came and began to draw water and filled the trough in order to water their father's flock. When some shepherds came and drove them away, Moses came up and defended them, and then watered their flock. Now, what happened was that here is a Midian a priest. He has 7 daughters. That's lots of daughters, don't you think? But anyway, so probably he told his daughters, hey, you guys get together, and if the strange man came and tried to do something harm to you, all 7 get together and chase guys away. If the 7 get together, maybe 1 or 2 guys, you can chase him away. So all the 7 girls, they are all together. Maybe some of them had a little wood stick. Just make sure that no man will attack them or to do something bad to them. So, but the 7 of them go together and get the water from the well, and also they have to water their father's flock. But here come the shepherd. Here comes the bully shepherd came, and they look at the girls and say, "Oh, here come the girls! Here, look at it!" And they just maybe maybe spank their butts or something, and then, "Oh no, what are you doing?" And then they will say, "Hey, why don't you guys just leave here?" And usually seems like a shepherd chased a woman, and then all the 7 girls probably holding the bucket and standing next to the well, waiting until the shepherds will finish what they're doing, and then maybe meanwhile they're just talking to girl with a dirty talk kind of. But here is today was different because Moses there. Now Moses apparently talked to this the shepherd, say, "Hey buddy, what the heck are you guys doing? These girls are here before you guys. You guys shut up. I mean, what you talking about? You guys go away." Then probably the shepherd go, "What the? Who are you?" And say, if you don't leave, I'm gonna smash you. And then so that those shepherds, what the? So they left, and all those girls for girls, Moses is like a hero. And then Moses, "Oh, thank you very much." And then so for Moses, he looked and he said, "Oh, okay, well, girls, you guys are getting the water? Oh, let me help you." And yeah, here's Moses kind of acting very nice and hero. And he even helped water her flocks. I mean, his their flock, and so on. Apparently, Moses looked good, very good. Now here we can kind of speculate on Moses' personality, his character. First of all, he's a very brave. Sometimes if the men see some 4 or 5 other guys, you don't want to really get into trouble. But in case of Moses, he is very brave. He will go, and also he act like always like a superhero. When he killed the Egyptian, basically he killed Egyptian because he's trying to help Hebrew people, and he act like a hero. He wanted to be a hero, but he's not really successful until then. And then, but this time, he's brave and he act like a hero. But at the same time, he might had a little, short temper, I would say. And then he always had like a very powerful fist that he has. Like he probably has certain. He's very confident about his militaristic power. He's maybe macho guy, I would say, if the one word. But that kind of seems like a Moses. Moses is a very active, nice guy basically. But he's a little bit short temper. And but then for girls, he's a hero. And let's see what happened after this in verse 18. So when they came home to their father Reuel, he asked, "Why have you come home so early today?" They said, "An Egyptian man rescued us from the shepherd, and he actually drew water for us and watered the flock." Here the daughter came back home, and the father was a little bit surprised. "Oh, you guys come home a little early." And usually, I guess girls have to wait until all those shepherds are left. So maybe 2, 3, 4 hours they had to wait with holding the buckets, maybe, and standing there. But not today. Today's those daughter came back kind of happy because they met a very nice guy, and they're happy there. And then they report that to their father. "Oh, we met the Egyptian guy. He really nice guy. He helped us, Daddy." And then what happened after this? Verse 20. He said to his daughters, "So where is he? Why in the world did you leave him, the man? Call him so that he may eat a meal with us." Well, father, he's serious because he has 7 daughters. He had to sell some out quick. I mean, well, wait, ladies, the good man, will disappear soon. I mean, so you gotta catch it. So because of this, the father said, why in the world you leave that good? Why you leave that man? We better catch that man soon. So he asked the daughter to go back to look for Moses. Probably Moses was sitting next to the well. By the way, Moses this time is 40 years old. He's, well, for our standard, he's not the youngest, but he's still probably good looking, 40 years old. And he sitting next to a well, and he said, "Oh man, today's a very strange day, but I kind of feel good. I helped those girls, and then, but what should I do now?" Then the girls came with a little laughing and cheering, and then girls go, "Oh, please come to our house and eat the dinner with us." And maybe some of them kind of start praying Moses. Oh, yeah. Moses didn't feel too bad. I mean, surrounded by 7 girls. And then Moses, yeah, well, yeah. So Moses went to their house. And then what happened after this? Let's see. The verse 21. Moses agreed to stay with the man, and he gave him daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. When she bore a son, Moses named him Gershon, for he said, "I have become a residence foreigner in a foreign land." Now here, Moses decided to stay with the man, the daughter's father, the Midian priest, and he will actually going to marry to the one of the daughter, and her name is Zipporah. Now Zipporah means like a little bird. So maybe father come to the Moses and say, "Hey, guy, why don't you stay with us? We need a man like you to help us, and you can protect us, and do you have any other place to go?" And then Moses, "No, not really. I really didn't know what to do from now." "Well, this must be a God's way. Why don't you stay with us?" And then maybe this man say, "Oh, what do you think about my daughter, Zipporah?" Now, Zipporah means a little bird, so why don't you, what do you think about this little bird? And then the, little chick, kind of, and then Moses would go, "Yeah, she's kind of cute." And then they got married, and they had an even son. Now, son he named. Well, actually, they had two sons, but then the one son he named Gershom. Now, Gershom means basically what that mean is like a foreigner or aliens, I would say. What in the world well, probably everybody around there was a Midian, so they didn't understand the word meaning. But then the son probably asked father when he grew up, say, "Hey, Dad, what's my name means, Gershom?" And he said, "You're alien." That's not good. But one thing we can tell that Moses' heart is still in Egypt. He still had a concern of his people in Egypt, the people he left there. At least we can tell because he named his son foreigner because he's foreigner, and he feels like he's foreigner because his heart is still, even though now he live in Midian next 40 years, and so the time is go very fast. He married one the daughter, and maybe others remaining six. They probably married one by one with some other guys nearby. And but then now the Moses stay in Midian 40 years. That is a very long time. And then what happened after this in chapter 2, verse 23? During that long period of time, the king of Egypt died, and the Israeli groaned because of the slave labor. They cried out, and their desperate cry because of their slave labor went up to God. God heard their groaning. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob. God saw the Israeli, and God understood. Now here, what happened? The many years passed. I'm talking about next 40 years passed. Now, the Moses around 80 years old, and that during the 40 years, what happens in Egypt after Moses left? Let me show you this diagram again. When Hatshepsut died and Moses left, the Tutmosis III died year 1450 BC. And for that long time, maybe 35, 70, almost 40 years there, the Tutmosis III really tried to erase all the Hatshepsut's achievement. And not only that, he tried to give very hardship to the Israel people. And then now his son Amenhotep II is now the pharaoh of the Egypt. And Moses already about 80 years old. And that is really timeline. And here is Israeli. After 40 years, after Moses left, during the 40 years, the Israeli finally cried to God for help. Until the 40 years, they tried to live their life. During the Hatshepsut's time, that they probably had a kind of an okay time. They didn't have a hard time, and Egypt was economically very booming. But after she died, and now the king Tutmosis III, he really tried to erase the Israeli people. He tried to be very mean to Israeli people, and they cried out to God. And then God, after 40 years later, God heard their cry, or they finally decided to pray to God apparently, and God remembered the promise He made with Abraham. Now, what kind of promise that He made? And some of you probably remember that is from the Genesis chapter 17, verse 7 and 8. Let me read that for you. "I will confirm my covenant as a perpetual covenant between me and you. It will extend to your descendants after you throughout your generation. I will be your God and God of your descendants after you. I will give the whole land of Canaan, the land where you are now residing, to you and your descendants after you as a permanent possession. I will be their God. Now that is a very significant covenant that God remember the promise that He promised the Israeli that they will be permanently become occupied the land of Canaan, and so He remembered that, and he does fulfill the covenant. See, we maybe easily we forget about our promise and stuff, but God will never change, and God will never forget His promise. And but He gave 40 years of hardship to Israeli, and finally, when they cried out to God, God decided this is a time to save them after 40 years later. And we see here that when we talk about Moses' life, the Moses' life is really split in 40 different 40 years, and that 40 is basically quite often the Bible uses the 40 for time of preparation or time of training or time of hardship that He gave to us. For example, that when the Jesus went up the mountain in the wilderness, the Satan tempted Jesus for 40 days, and that is a time that Jesus prepared for His ministry. And then when Jacob's family came to Egypt, it was almost 400 years past, and finally the Israeli now cry out to God and they can leave from the land. After this, next 40 years, the Israeli will be stay in the wilderness. Now the 40 is quite often God used the 40 years, so number 4 or 40, 400 years, 40 days, whatever. Apparently He used that lengths during that time to train us and gonna test us and see if we are really the worthy, that He can trust us. Let me read from the Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 2 and 3, because some of you probably wonder that why I'm having a hard time right now. Maybe some of you say, when you're a kid, you had lots of dreams. You say, I would like to be this and that, and probably almost everyone, when you're a kid, you have a somewhat successful life that you probably dreamed of. But as you become adults, most of us realize that how hard it is to live in adult life, how difficult it is to live, and sometimes very hard. And some of us are facing a lot of trouble, finance trouble, marriage problem, many other problems, and you are not being promoted as you wanted to be, and so on. Now, why God, who loved you, He gave you such a hardship? Now, if you question that, the Bible has an answer for that. Now, let me read Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2 and 3. Remember whole way by which He has brought you these 40 years through the wilderness, so that He might, by humbling you, test you to see if you have it within you to keep His commandment or not. So He humbled you by making you hungry and then feeding you with unfamiliar manna. He did this to teach you that humankind cannot live by bread alone, but also by everything that comes from the Lord's mouth. Now, that is a very profound Bible verse. The Bible clearly tells us that God does discipline us, and quite often the 40 years He does. And this is during the test. The key purpose is to humble you. we try to handle our life by our own strengths. Like when Moses went up to his own people, he tried to handle himself and he killed the Egyptians and he thought nobody watched it. But God watched it, and God gave Moses next 40 years in the land of Midian to be prepared. And now during that time, the Israelites who rejected Moses at that time, they too have to go through the very, very hardship. How about you though? Now, if you are facing a hardship, don't you think God may be watching you? You maybe not know that God is watching you. Maybe you think you are handling your own life. But the more you try to do your life, very hard. But then God is so faithful. God did not forget or God did not give up on you, even though you may give up on God. So God give you manna. At least you can live day by day. God at least protect you so far and gave you manna so you can live. But then God clearly indicate that manna or bread, that you should not live alone. We think to live, all we have to do is eat and have a house and have a job and car and all that. But God said to live, for human to live, is not bread alone, but everything comes from Lord's mouth. That means that God's word. See, God speak to us, and we live with God's word. Everything comes from His mouth. But then we don't realize that. Then God have to give you 40 years for hardship and try to make you humble. And let me read in the verse 16 of the Deuteronomy 8 also. Then he continues to say in the verse 16, "Fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your ancestor had never before known, so that he might by humbling you, test you, and eventually bring good to you." Now, the Bible clearly indicates that God is so kind to us, and God is so faithful to us, and God will never forget the promise He has with us. And God made you according to His own plan, but we don't live according to God's plan. We try to handle our life ourselves. And then God have to give you 40 years. But during the 40 years, He might give you hardship. But then if you cry out to God, finally, when you look up to God, instead of look at yourself or try to handle yourself, God is faithful. God remember the promise He made with you and the promise that He going to now, after you look up to Him, after you ask for help, after you surrender to God, that now He can use you, and He can use you to exactly the original plan that He had, that He can use you the way that you are supposed to be made, and He finally able to use you. Now I had a little experience when I was working in Chicago, and I had a coworker. He's an American guy, and we had some tremendous difficulty at the work. And then at that time, this American guy, he started to pray. And I was very surprised. I thought I would never pray during my work time, even though I'm Christian. But this guy, he started to pray. And then I realized he's a Christian. And I asked him, "Oh, you pray?" And he said he pray all the time. He said, at work or doesn't matter. Every time he saw some difficulty, he prayed. And sure enough, after he prayed, the things went to the problem solved immediately. I thought, wow, why I didn't do that? See, quite often that when we had a hardship, we forget about God. We don't look around. We just try to handle. But like Moses, if we really try to do, sometimes we get in trouble. We have to leave. Now, God protect Moses twice now, and now he went to the Midian, and God gave Moses okay life, nice life, but the 40 years God prepared Moses there in the land of Midian. At the same time, God prepared the Israeli the 40 years in the land of Egypt. How about you? How about you? Do you think is that God may give you hardship, so He may be preparing you to do His work instead of your dream? And this is a time we should look up to God and ask Him to handle our life. Shall we pray? Father in heaven, thank you for your teaching today. Thank you for your word. We live not by bread alone, by every every word comes from your mouth. Lord, thank you for your teaching. Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.